Alright, today on the channel we're going to learn how to set up my Charvel Super Strat guitar with a Floyd Rose. Let's go! Alright, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to tackle the full setup of a guitar equipped with a Floyd Rose tremolo system. The guitar you either love or you hate. It's really not that bad. We're going to go step by step. As with all my videos, there are chapter markers below if you want to skip to whatever part you're interested in the most. Now this one's going to operate a little bit differently than some of my other videos. I'm not going to have a spec sheet for this one just because those other videos were, Gibson related or Fender where they have specific things. I'm doing this as the Floyd Rose setup. This happens to be a Charvel, but there are many other brands that have Floyd Roses equipped in them, so I'm not going to do like a spec sheet. I am going to check it, but I just kind of wanted to put that out there. Also, please keep in mind I'm wearing this camera around my neck here so I can have full access to both of my hands. So if the camera is a little bit shaky, that's why. All right, so let's go over some things needed for this setup. Obviously, we need a cradle to hold the guitar neck. We have some wire cutters for a string, capo, tuner, string winder. I prefer one that's on a drill, but you can use a regular one if you want. That's totally up to you. A set of feeler gauges, suction cup thing, which I'll get to in a moment. Allen key for the locking tuners up there. Action guide, 9-volt battery for the bridge. Again, I'll get to that point. I'll show you when we get there. This also, this is a trem stopper, but I'll explain this when we get there. That's optional. You don't need that. Screwdriver just in case. This is just a metal rod for adjusting the neck relief on a Charvel type guitar or a guitar with the little wheel in there, which we'll get to. Again, another optional tool which is amazing, this Intonation tool. I'll show you how that works. Set of strings and a rag. All right, let's get going with the pre-setup here. Okay, first thing you want to do, make sure your guitar is in tune and everything is good to go for the way you like it. Got a capo on the first fret. I usually fret somewhere between the 17th, 18th fret, kind of where the neck meets the body there, and then it's pretty much the same as normal. We go to the 7th fret, 8th fret, and kind of take some measurements. Again, this is optional. You don't have to do this. I just like to see where I'm at and where I'm starting before I do this. So it looks like in this case we're at about 0.008 on this one, which is about 20 millimeters, which is pretty good for me. Again, this stuff is subjective. That's pretty good for me, at least to start. We'll see if the neck changes after I get the strings off. So, all right, let's move on. All right, before we take the strings off, obviously we have to open up the back plate and secure the bridge, so that way when we take the strings off, it doesn't, fly back and make your setup. It'll take a lot longer than it needs to be. One thing I wanted to show you is that, a lot of guitars have this cover on here. This also works for electronics covers and everything. I don't know about you, but I've seen so many guitars that have like little chips around here, because once you take all these screws out, there's nowhere for you to like pick this thing up. You can try to stick a screwdriver in the hole, or I've seen people, I used to use a dental pick, stick in that little hole and lift it out, but that's where this little suction cup comes in. If you once you have all the screws out, you put it in the middle, boom, just comes right off. No chipping necessary. Now I got this in Home Depot, I think. It actually came in a light bulb kit, one of those like the light bulb kits, I think, where they're like recessed, something like that. It was a couple of bucks, but man, this thing is invaluable. I've used it so many times on those plastic parts for like I just showed you, or like if you have electronics here, it comes right off. So I definitely would recommend getting one of these, but that's how I use this thing. All right, let's move on. All right, now it's time to take the bridge and block it. Now, I know I'm going to anger some folks with this section here, so please bear with me. You know, I'm not a luthier. I just use what I have on hand. So you remember in the beginning of the video, I said you needed one of these. Well, I forgot. This guitar can't use this, right? If you notice, I already have a problem. There's a spring in the way. When I go to take off this spring, or take off these strings, the tension, there's no more tension on this bridge. So it's gonna fly this thing forward. This thing is gonna go towards this wood. So I need something in here to stop that from happening. Well, two problems with this. One, it's too big. Two, even if there was no spring here, that gap is way too small. So this isn't gonna work. So what do? Well, I've seen there's tons and tons of different ways you can do this. You can use washers, picks, guitar picks, right? And then you put tape around it. Problem is with me, guitar pick's not fitting in there. Nothing, a washer would fit in there, but I'd have to, you know, I don't have any washers on hand. So here's what I use. And again, this is just feeler gauges. Not only is this will this work, it's small enough to go through this gap. It also allows you to measure exactly what size the gap in between the bridge block and the wood is. So that way you technically only have to do this once, and then you can make something this exact size to go in next time. Washers, whatever it is. Now, I know you already know what you're saying. Yeah, but that's going to scratch the pane. It's going to, you know, damage it when you flip it upside down. Well, theoretically, you would be correct if I wasn't going to wrap it in anything. You can put a bunch of stuff over this. You can use gloves. I know it's a dirty rag. It's all I have. But you can use a glove, a sock, anything that's soft, right? Anything at all, right? So and then when you flip it over, now we have the bridge blocked. You just hold it in place. When you flip the guitar over, you're going to need something to put underneath of it so it's like perfectly flat. I'll show you. So we flip the guitar over. I'm still holding the feeler gauges right with my hand. I have this little headphone case. I put it underneath, and that's it. And now, if we look under here, we can see that everything is held in place. The bridge is fine, right? And now we can start working on this. Again, you can use whatever you have. You could buy a set of feeler gauges for every Super Strat that you have, or every Floyd Rose, and then you can, obviously you could tape it all off and then you wouldn't have to worry about scratching. I just happen to have like 5 guitars that have Floyd Roses, and they all have different gaps. So I could buy 5 different feeler gauges, or now when I have this, I can measure a set of washers or something to put in there for the next time. So that's just a quick, you know, at-home thing. Feeler gauges are not that expensive. So if you only have one guitar that has a Floyd Rose, then maybe you want to use the feeler gauge and then tape it all up afterwards so you're good to go. Now the other thing I want to mention is I showed this little tool in the beginning of the video. This is called a trem block, right? It's a black piece of plastic with, you know, rubber on the bottom so it doesn't scratch the guitar. Now these work really well for the non-recessed Floyd Roses, right? You can see this one gets routed into the body. It's down here. Well, here's the problem with this thing. So you can see already it's too high. So in order for me to actually use this on a recessed Floyd, I would have to push the bar down and slide this underneath, which is going to defeat really the whole purpose of trying to keep this bridge fixed. Because if this bridge is up, when you put the strings on and then you release the tension, it's going to go down, and then you're stuck, right? You're stuck with the back and forth of the tuning thing. So I can't really use this on this type of guitar, at least not this one, because like I said, you can see it's going to make the bridge go like in an up position like this. So theoretically, you know, you can, as long as you can get something in the back there, you want to keep this bridge as steady as possible. All right, next is taking off the locking screws up here. An Allen wrench. Now I like to keep these in the order in which I took them off. So I just keep them in that metal cup like the way I took them off. Now, when you're doing a string change, theoretically, if you're putting the exact same type of strings, same gauge, same tuning, everything should pretty much stay where it's at. On all of my Floyd Roses, except for one, I always use 10s tuned down to E flat. Why? I don't know. I've just always done that because I like 9 gauge strings on my other guitars. I like to put 10s on the Floyd Rose tuned down so they feel like 9s. I'm just weird. I don't know why I do that, but I do. So now it's time to take the strings off. But again, theoretically, if I have 10s on here, let's just say they're these, right? Ernie Ball 10. If I have this tuned to E flat and I'm doing the exact same thing, as long as this bridge is blocked, once I put the new strings on, get everything tuned up to pitch and all that, there really should not be a whole lot of problems because this guitar was already set up previously for the exact same specs. Now, if you're changing from 10s to 9s or 9s to 11s or something like that, that's when you're going to get into the whole issue of the claw in the back, the neck, and all that stuff. So go ahead and take these strings off here. Now, I do like to loosen these just a little. I don't take them off. You know, I do clip them off, but I just loosen them up a little bit. And then I just clip them all off here. I know people freak out when you do this. I don't know why. I've been playing guitar for 30 years or so. I've never had a problem clipping all the strings off at once. I've never damaged the neck. I've never really, but it's your own preference. So I'll come back once all these strings are off. All right, next is a little bit of maintenance and cleaning. Really, so this is a maple neck, unfinished maple neck. I can't stress this enough. You don't want to use any oils on this. Now, it's your guitar, you can do whatever you want. The only thing I use to clean this fretboard is a damp rag. Notice I said damp, not soaked. Very damp, like wrung out, again, just to wipe off the dust on here, right? Make everything look nice. You may be asking yourself too, is that still a pick guard cover from like when you originally bought it? It is. Why is it still on there? Again, I'm a weird guy. I don't know. I just left it on there. I've never taken it off. And I'm not going to start right now. I don't know why. Again, I'm weird. Maple fretboard, right? If there's any issues, right, you just kind of get it off here. You can use naphtha as well, lighter fluid. But, you know, this guitar is not really, there's not a whole lot wrong with it. It's, you know, it's in really good shape. It's a good idea to inspect everything too. And you don't need to go crazy, right? Just a little kind of rub. Again, this is very, very lightly damp. It is not soaked. If I squeeze this, there's no water coming off of it. You don't want to soak this fretboard. Again, it's wood. I've never had a problem doing this. And again, naphtha, if you have like, you know, these maple fretboards tend to get a little bit on the dirty side. So you can definitely use that. And then, like I said, I just kind of wipe it down. Now, I'm not going to be doing like a whole fret job or anything on this. This was brand new that I bought in 2021. So the frets are still fine, but it's a good idea to kind of check everything here. Make sure there's nothing loose. That headstock, a quick wipe. Cool. That's pretty much it for the maintenance part. Again, you want to check over everything, make sure everything looks good, nice and tight, and then now we can kind of go and put the strings on. All right, now it is time for the strings. Now, there's two different ways you can do this. Well, there's probably more than two, but the two most common ways that I've ever seen are you clip this ball end off, right? Focus. You clip this off like down here, and then you put it in right there, and then you bring this all the way up here. That's fine. The other way, and the way I do it, just because somebody showed me that when I was a teenager, and it made life a lot easier. you put it in this way, so the ball end is up here, and then you cut down here. Now the difference is, if you do it the other way, you're cutting twice. You got to cut this ball end off, and then you got to cut this part off too at the top. The way when you put the ball end to the top, there's only one cut, and it's just a little bit faster. So I'm doing it that way. Again, it's most of this stuff is personal preference. It's not going to hurt anything. I don't take this like string tree thing off. I just leave it on there. I've never, it's not a big deal getting in the way or anything like that. So, in a second, I get this. Sometimes this is really hard to do with a camera wrapped around your neck. But, it is what it is. Right? So let me get the string tree up here. Right, there we go. Okay. There. Now, I do all the clipping and everything last. So right there it is. Right, it's in there. Right, you can do it the other way. Again, whatever works for you is the best way you want to do it. There's no wrong answer. If you want to do it the other way, do it the other way. So I'll put all these strings on, and we'll come back when it's time to clip. All right, I have all the strings on here. I did at the ball ends first, but again, personal preference. So when we get down to these, the way I like to do it, again, this is just the way I do it, is I cut them all. I take all the strings and go to whatever the longest screw, Allen bolt right here, whatever the longest one is coming out, I clip all the strings right to that, because I know I'm never going to need anything more than that. So if I cut it right there, I should be good to go for all the strings. So I just kind of cut them all at once. And now we're ready to go. And I'll put one in here. We got our little handy, I'll move them over here. So there we go. We just put it in there. And then, now the thing with these is they do not have to be super duper tight. You don't want to, over tighten these things. Just enough, hand tight is fine. Ugh, so hard to do this on camera. Hand tightening is fine. Man. But there is no need to just get nuts, right? And like really tighten these down, because you will damage the little blocks inside. Okay, and that should do it. And now, take this up here, and now I like to just use this until it gets just a little, little tension, and then tighten the rest by hand. I know it gives you extra there. I know it gives you extra wraps at the top here, but again, that's just the way I do it. You can cut it shorter or whatever you want. That's just the way I do it. So I'm gonna bring this one up to pitch here. I gotta plug in my tuner and everything, so I'll come back in a second. All right, so I'm getting, this is pretty close here. I usually bring these up almost exactly to pitch, just because when I go and take out the thing that's the feeler gauges that's holding the trem in place, it always tends to pull slightly sharp. So I'm just kind of getting it set up for that right now. But I'm going to do the rest of the strings, and I will show you when I'm done. All right. The strings are on, everything is ready, so theoretically when I take this little thing out from the back here, the bridge should, again, like I said, it has a tendency to move slightly sharp, so hopefully everything will be in tune. I'm just gonna pull that out here, and let me get it out of the way so as not to scratch anything. I don't need this anymore. All right, and let's see where we ended up here. Well, what I tell you, D sharp. So Yeah, so you just have to kind of mess with it just a little bit. One thing I did forget to mention, hopefully you want to back these out at least 50% for some, kind of fine tuning adjustments here. So again, we're pretty much right on the money. So I'm going to go ahead and just, make sure they're all tuned up, and then we'll get to the intonation part. All right, I just wanted to show you that. See how the float, it's good, it's perfectly level, everything is good. So what I try to do after the strings are set up, you want to get them, you want to use your tuners and get them as close to even, as close to in tune as possible, and then once you put the locking nuts back on, you'll be able to fine tune it, with these. One thing to keep in mind, is that this, hopefully I can focus this, but before you put the locking nuts on, it's important to take a look at the angle of the string. Let me see if let me take the phone out here actually of this little holder. Okay, much better. So you want to take a look at this angle of the string here. A lot of times I read on video or on forums and see on videos, that people will say, hey, when I put my locking nuts on, everything goes sharp, right? Usually that's because the angle here is not correct. So you want to make sure that these are basically like touching, in a sense, this part right here. Because if you look at it, if the string is too high up right here, if it's too high up, then when you clamp it down, it's going to push down on it and make it sharp, right? But if you have the correct angle set up, that's what this thing is for. So if you're looking at your guitar before you put the locking nuts on and you notice that, the string is higher than the little edge right there where it's coming off, then you want to use this thing and push it down, so that way there's no gap here. So I just wanted to point that out. All right, so now I'm going to put the locking nuts back on here. Oh damn, stronger magnet than I thought. Putting them back on in the order in which they came off. So we just put that right there. Okay. Now, before I do this, it should, as I just mentioned, right, I'm pretty close right now. I'm dead even here. So once I tighten this locking screw, the note really should not change. Now, these do not need to be like gorilla tight, just enough where they're not going to move. So let's see what we got. See? So it's tight, you can hear, and the pitch of the note didn't change. That's because this is set up correctly. So again, refer to that section if you have questions on that. So I'm going to do the rest of these here, and then we'll do neck relief and action and intonation. All right, we got our capo on the first fret. I usually like to hold down somewhere between the 17th, 18th fret where the neck meets the body, and then we measure right around the 7th or 8th fret. So that would be right here. And this looks pretty good, honestly. Let's see if it's, so that's 0.008, 20 mil. Let's try this one here. It's 0.006. Hard to do this with the camera, sorry, give me a sec. Okay, yep, so that's about right. So this doesn't need any neck adjustments, but I will show you, because it's important to know, on these Floyd Rose, or I'm sorry, not the Floyd Rose, the wheels. So let's say we get this tool here. So I showed you this in the beginning, right? So obviously you can see on this guitar, there is no adjustment here, like a normal Strat style guitar. This has the adjustment wheel down here, which I actually prefer. So you need something that will go in there. This little metal rod, an Allen key, will go in there, a smaller Allen key. I don't know, actually. Let's see if the one that takes off all the screws. No, that one's just a little bit too big. So one size smaller than whatever fits in the locking nut, that's what'll fit in there. But again, this little bar, what you want to do is you put it in here, right, in one of the holes. Now, if I wanted to tighten, let me see if I can grab something to demonstrate. Yeah, let me use this feeler gauge. Okay, so if I wanted to tighten the neck, so the neck, if it looked like, let me get it, like if the neck looked like this, again, I know this is a gross exaggeration, if the neck looked like this and I wanted to tighten it to make it flatter, I would take this and go this way to the right to tight. Again, it's just like all the other stuff you learned. If the neck is too, tight, and you want to put relief in there, right, and make it go flatter, you would take this and go to the left. Loose, left, loosey, righty, tighty. It's the same stuff. So if it's too, right, if the neck is too tight, you go to the left. If the neck is too loose, you go to the right. Right? That's how that thing works. Okay, so even though I did not need to make any adjustments on these screws, the claw here, it's still important to talk about them. So it's really a balancing act, because you got to remember, once, the only thing holding that Floyd in place is the strings on the other side and these springs here. So it's kind of like hovering, right? It's like a, it's trying to achieve equilibrium. So pretend this is your Floyd, right, on the other side. If you put your strings on and you notice your Floyd is like this, right, bent upwards, then you're going to need to tighten these screws. You're going to need to twist and go to the right and make these springs tighter, right, to pull this back more. If you see your Floyd Rose after you put the strings on and it's down like this, it's like that, then you're going to need to loosen the springs to let the tension of the strings pull the Floyd Rose up a little bit more to achieve equilibrium. And you have to go back and forth, right, because you got to keep, when you tighten the Floyd and it goes down like this, the strings get tighter, and it can take a long time. Hence why blocking this it's such an invaluable thing to do, because it saves you the time. Now again, if you're changing string size, string gauge or tuning or something like that, then you're kind of stuck doing that. But that's why I think it's so critically important to block this in the beginning, because then you pretty much eliminate that whole step when you're done. All right, let's talk about action height. You really want to do all this stuff, like I said, in the playing position. So I usually like my Charvels set up at about 1.5 on the high E string at the 12th fret, which, give me a second to get that, which is about where we're at there, and about 1.75 on the low E string. So let's see if I can get that, show that. Yep, and there we go, right there. So this one is, again, it's set up. I've done this before, so it's pretty much exactly where I want it. Now, if you need to adjust the action on your Floyd Rose, the way you do it is with these screws right here. Now, I'm not here to tell you which way is the best way to do that. Some people will say, the heck with it, just screw it while there's tension on there. Some people say don't do that because it wears out the knife edges. Some people say you got to loosen all the strings, then do it and tighten it back up. Some people even say you can just push this thing down and then tighten it that way. Everybody is different. This is why I do pre-measurement stuff before I take off all the strings, so I know where I'm at. So if I know, if the action is high, once I take all the strings off, I know I have to go tighten it or loosen it or whatever. So that's how you do the action on these. Again, whatever works best for you. I'm not here to tell you which way is the best or worst way. I'm not a luthier, so just do which way works for you. All right, now it's time for the best part of the whole video, the intonation. Now ideally, you want to do this in the playing position, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to do it this way just so you can see how I'm actually doing it. And we're actually going to talk about, finally, we're going to talk about this tool right here. All right, No, you didn't switch to the wrong video. I just got a different guitar because I want to show you how this thing works, and it's kind of hard to see on a black Floyd Rose. So you can see this is my EVH Frankie. Now this is a regular Floyd Rose. It's not recessed, but it doesn't matter. It's still the same. So what you basically want to do is you want to take this thing, hook it around the back right here. It goes on top of the fine tuner, right over the fine tuner. Underneath there's a little, let me get the camera, there's a little lip there, if you can see it right there. It goes underneath the silver part, over top of the tuning, the fine tuner, and then it sits in this little hole right there behind the block of the Floyd right there. Okay, and so if you want to, if you need to pull the string, it comes with this Allen wrench. If you need to, when you're intonating, if you need to pull the string back, you basically tighten this bolt here and it will move the saddle back. If you need to go forward, you'll turn it to the left and it will allow this to move more forward, so you can set the intonation to allow that to go up more. So that's how that little device works. I just wanted to show you on a silver Floyd because I know, again, on a black one and sometimes it's hard to see. All right, so now it's time for this handy dandy little tool here. So you see I have it in there. Now we'll check. Basically this note, the saddle needs to come this way. Okay, so this note, let's get going here. Oops, cables sometimes, I tell you, it's hard. All right, like I said, ideally you'd want to do this in the playing position. Check the 12th fret here. A little bit flat. So this saddle needs to come forward. So what you want to do is, once you have this released, you're going to want to loosen this tool, right? You're going to want to go to the left because it'll allow this thing to get, because the tension on the string is pulling this saddle right now. And what you want to do is keep going to the left, because then it'll allow the saddle, the string will pull the saddle forward. Once you find your note, then you tighten it back up. So, and then you just kind of got to keep rechecking. I should have a pick, but I forgot to grab one. Like I said, I'm playing position typically with this. That's pretty close. I don't know why it keeps going. There we go. Still a little bit flat. All right, just a little bit more. So we just keep going until we achieve intonation. Whoops, wrong tool. It is cool that this comes with a little Allen key, which is the same size as the saddles. So, and we just back and forth. Now again, if you were doing this the other way, the traditional way, it would take a lot longer. And I'll just show you what I mean by that in a second here. It's pretty dang close. Maybe just a little bit more. Now the traditional way to do this, again, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just a lot more time consuming, where if you didn't have this thing, you have to take the tension completely off the string, move the saddle up, tighten it back up, check it, and keep repeating that process. Whereas this, you never have to take full tension off the string, and once you hit, equilibrium or whatever, the note, then you're good to go. You can just tighten it back up and you're done. You don't have to keep putting tension on and taking it off. I found when I do that too much, the strings tend to break, and you know, not a good thing. So let's see. Oh, that's perfect. All right, so now we just need to tighten this back up and we're good to go. So we put that in the key and we just tighten it up. Again, not gorilla tight, just tight enough where it's not gonna fly off. Okay, and now we just make this a little bit looser so we can actually get it off. And that is it. Can you just use your finger, that's it. And you just do the rest of the strings that same way. And now our guitar is intonated and ready to go. So that'll do it for this video here. This thing is set up, ready to go, and it sounds great. So hopefully this was helpful to some people. I'd really like to know what kind of guitars you have that have Floyd Roses that you really like. Again, these things can be really fun. Once you get it dialed in, you know, a couple times, these things are really, really fun to play. They're just really cool. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.